Good evening. We now have quorum.
Apologies, I just signed off from the Children's Aid Society meeting.
Excellent.
I told Jason about it, so apologies. I'm listening to it in my other ear. Thank you.
Thank you, Xavier.
I was at the meeting as well.
I know John was there.
Thank you, John, for being international and still being on time.
I heard that, Jason.
Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, Happy Three Kings and Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and all those beautiful holy and holidays that I hope gave everybody a better sense of positivity towards their reality than what we've been going through for the last 9 months. So thank you all for everybody who's here in attendance tonight. I see we have committees back in action, ready for work to begin in 2021, and we have an exciting agenda. We were able to get Councilmember Kalos to present today, pretty much after our discussions and business conversation. So without further ado, Carly, can you start us off?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Until further notice, all meetings of Manhattan Community Board 11 will be conducted by video conference. Links to register to attend the video conferences for each of our respective committee meetings will be published on our meetings calendar on our website, which is CB11M.org. To avoid crosstalk and help the meeting run effectively, panelists and attendees are asked to keep their microphones on mute when they're not speaking. It's also helpful to utilize headphones. Those participating by phone can dial *6 to unmute. If you wish to share a question or a comment, you may do so by utilizing the raise hands function. I will be monitoring to ensure all of your hands are recognized. Those participating by phone can dial *9 to raise their hand. Committee members will be called on first, and then attendees. Please keep your questions or comments brief. Oh, forgot to edit this to say Jason. Sorry, Jason, from last month.
It's cool. So yeah, I'm calling the meeting to order at 6:39 p.m. and looking to have an exciting conversation and collaboration towards our efforts this year. So can you go with the attendance?
Sure. Okay.
Thank
I'll
you.
go by last name. Arroyo.
Excused.
Oh, Brooks. I thought he was here.
Here. Present.
Okay. Goldblum.
Here.
Green.
Here.
Malave.
Here.
Meyer.
Here.
Padilla. Santiago.
Here.
Villanueva.
Present.
And Wu.
Excused.
Okay, you have quorum.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Motion by John, second by
Second by Giselle.
Olave. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Present not voting. Motion passes 6:41. So let the agenda begin. Committee discussion on accomplishments in 2020 and goals for 2021. This is an open discussion. Pretty much we're just going to go through each committee member and have this beautiful presentation reviewed by Carly. So.
Yeah. I don't mind starting with the accomplishments and then letting you all jump right into your goals. I feel like that makes sense. Looking behind us and then moving forward, looking ahead. So this year, the committee passed two letters out, or two actions outside of our required mandated duty to submit our annual statement of district needs and budget request. So in response to the 2021 executive budget, we issued a statement criticizing the budget as it was presented and calling on the mayor to reconsider where he allocates funding. And then so that was passed in, I believe, April or May. And then in June, the committee issued a follow-up letter in support of reducing and redirecting the NYPD budget in fiscal year 2021, the fiscal year we're currently in. So I wanted to highlight that, I specifically wanted to highlight the actions taken outside of our mandate. So I applaud the committee for taking those actions. And then for fiscal year 2022, the committee expanded its community engagement for our statement of district needs. If you recall, we had the survey that we distributed, and we went from having 0 responses, 0 testimonies from the public, to having 77 survey respondents and 3 public hearing testimonies. So that, there's always room for improvement, but that was a drastic improvement from the years prior. So again, congratulations. And as for the city mandate, as always, we submitted our annual budget requests. We our statement of district needs, and we also, one thing I forgot to mention here, is tally up all the agencies we met with for the district needs consultation. Yeah, I just thought of that now, so apologies for forgetting to do that. But we did meet with more agencies. Apparently, according to Jason, we've met with more agencies this year than we had in previous years. So and feel free to jump in and let me know if you think that we missed anything, but if not, we can move forward to goals. I think Xavier has his hand raised.
I think it's healthy to add. I don't think you missed anything. You definitely tackled the 3 top pillars of our efforts. So I would love to open it up to the floor and have that discussion for the record of what other accomplishments that you guys interpreted we performed for this fiscal cycle versus what you've seen in the past, or even for some of us that are newer, how, what you took from all the work that was able to get done. I mean, at the end of the day, we did submit successfully the statement of district need and budget request for our district. So the follow through that's going to happen in the next 6 months is going to be because of the work that you all performed the last 6 months. So again, I applaud you all. And especially to our new members, where we had 100% attendance in some of even the trainings that were out there with DCP and OMB. So I want to, thank you for sticking with it and immediately plugging in since your appointment to this committee. So I know the community loves you for it. I do. So let's keep doing this work together. Xavier.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you to the entire committee. Jason can tell you from its inception how hard we fought just to get community liaisons, like community board members, being able to report back and deliver information. And that was probably one of our largest lifts, and to get people plugged in and really understanding the process. And we're now starting to see that come to fruition. So patience is core to our success in getting these things done. I want to thank Carly and the staff for keeping us on rails. I think that's a massive accomplishment. Ask any ADM or DM. But I think that we did have not just more participation with the consultations, we had more of our chairs participating and more of our liaisons participating, which is getting them plugged in. And then a final note, beyond the public participation with the survey and everything, people in the community, and even though we had COVID and there were only a handful of us who would go out to events to kind of re-engage, people were feeling more reassured that the community board cares and that they're starting to understand how the budget process plays a part in that. And so Jason, the committee, Carly, everyone, thank you. John, everyone on this, you're just stuck in, and I'm very excited for this year. So thank you. Yeah, thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Xavier. Next, John, Mr. John Green. I'm just gonna start picking. We talked about in December 2020. We're just picking, so that way you guys could get a little bit more engaged. So, John, what do you think? What accomplishments you saw? I know you've been on this committee from the day it was born as well. So I would definitely appreciate. Yeah.
Well, to echo what Xavier said, the thing is that getting the community involved. No, actually, the thing is that in previous years, the thing it was always like it felt like it was like a rush, like pressure to get the list of budget requests in to the city council, but to me, it's been a lot easier the last couple of years, and that is because basically the cooperation of all the other committees, this committee, and for Carly, Marlene, and Angel, because they've done yeoman work to get all these things together on time and to the proper parties. So that's I will basically echo what Xavier said.
Thank you, John. And I speak for us all when we say we appreciate that insight. Giselle, Miss Malave.
Hi everyone. Happy New Year. And I wanted to also thank Carly, Jason, Xavier, specifically Mr. Green. Considering the circumstances with COVID, I didn't think it was going to be an easy task to like understand everything still in time, submit what I needed to submit, and kind of do a good job and put my heart in it as I usually like to do things. But you guys made it the transition so much smoother and just being able to have that communication. So thank you for that. I think a goal for 2021 being the liaison for the Echo Dev, I want to be able to each month make sure that I incorporate at least if it's just 5 or 10 minutes of the conversation when it comes to our needs, so that the members of Echo Dev kind of just start thinking like, okay, throughout our meetings, we always need to keep our needs in mind so that we know what are the most pressing issues, what are the things that maybe, what if there's not enough money for this right now, it's still important, but it's something that maybe we can, there's something that's more important that we can put in front of it for now. And given the circumstances, now with the businesses and economic development, we do need a lot of help and we need a lot of ideas and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you, Giselle. Yeah, definitely. There's a past goal that assisted, which I would loudly call accomplishment. It's probably at the bottom of the agenda, but I promise you all, in every committee, including even executive, there is a line item for district needs and budget consultations. And I love what Angel sent down the last 3 months about the agenda planning, because it started this thought process with like budget planning, right? And that's what I'm hearing, where for us to even be proactive to the proactive. I'm not the best mathematician, but I would believe there's some equation there. Us being that proactive would truly allow us to see success. So I applaud you, Giselle, and I would love to work with you and other committee members in budget agenda planning. That is a very interesting concept. So let's move it along. Mr. Goldblum. Hello, Joe, you can hear us? Well, we'll come back to Joe. Jennifer.
Yes, hello. It's kind of hard to think of. I felt like me and some others, we started and everything was like at the height when we started. So I think for strengths, like I think Carly was so helpful and catching us up and helping us, or at least me, understand like what was going on to start with. And Xavier and Jason, you were all just like super helpful at really just helping us understand everything, because it's a lot of information to take in at once. It's like our first meeting, you're like, all right, this is due next month. So I think that was just a strength and was really great to have. And then I think just thinking forward is, now that I've kind of like seen everything once, really understanding like what my role can be, and especially thinking about human services. And in human services, we were talking about just more collaboration with community organizations. And I think we're hoping COVID will get better and the vaccine and all that, but I think we're never going to really be back to that normal. So kind of thinking about what the adaptation will look like and what that means for district needs and budget, and what the needs will be for human services. And I think just for all the committees of what our new normal will look like and what exactly that means. And I think there are some really great strengths. I think in many ways we're reaching more people being online and having everything be remote. And so making sure, you know, as things maybe slowly start to move back to in-person things, that we're not losing that, and how exactly we keep that and just what that looks like.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yes, you're definitely one of those members I applaud that jumped in and not only was dealing with the challenges of SDN, but the turnover that was going on with the human services leadership. So I applaud you as well, and Rakeem, for your efforts in translating and getting that information to us. And there's always room for improvement. So, I have not a big topic, but when we're all done, I do have three goals that we've been talking about pretty much since when we ended the fiscal cycle, or I'm sorry, the annual cycle. So we'll circle back on that. Mr. Brooks, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, sir. Happy New Year to everybody. I think I'd echo much of what Jennifer just described. You all helped us get acclimated to the committee pretty quickly. I felt good about the depth and complexity of the document we produce. Hats off to Carly and the main team for constructing that and for receiving feedback and integrating it very quickly. So I think we've got a great process sort of set up, especially with soliciting feedback from the various committees. So I'm just looking forward to seeing how we can improve on that. If we can find a way to start slightly earlier, maybe it pushes us into the summer. And I know you all are guarding us from that, but it may just be a necessary part of this committee. But I think overall, work well done.
Thank you, Rakeem. It's funny, that was something me and Carly were talking about earlier, about we might have to be the bearer of bad news, that it may be in the interest of not only the board, but our district to start the process, anywhere from 3 to 6 months earlier. Because after this next phase, at least in my experience, the deliberations happen between the council and the mayor's office, and our consultation and recommendations at that point has already been noted. So it may be in the interest to start, as you all know, we're still waiting for the mayor's responses for our initial budget submission. So then our next stage would be to be responding to their responses. And then after that, we're waiting for the deliberation between city council and the mayor's office. And then that's when they enact their, they'll give us the budget, their adopted budget, and then the final executive budget. So I think around there is a good time to start earlier. But we have a little bit of time to work those weeds out. So Carly, you want to take it back on the goals? I have some more listed.
Sure. I mean, we have some hand raised. I don't mind going after everybody goes, technically.
I'm the same.
Not-
I defer to the body. I just can't see their hands. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
I
so
can see them.
Xavier. Oh,
Okay, Xavier. Yes, sir. Mr. Santiago.
you're still on mute, Xavier.
Oh, wow. I clicked the button. Sorry, Max. A couple of things I would love to see happen is that our relationship building with the agencies is not just as a one-off, that once a year or twice a year, we check in with them, that we're continually maintaining those relationships, because sometimes within the agencies, people will either move up within the agency, move laterally, or change agencies altogether. We've seen that happen. EDC is one. The HPD is another, where 2-3 years someone's gone. But I think building that relationship across the team members will be helpful. Another thing that I would love to see, now that we have our committee liaisons reporting back and engaging, is that they keep pushing the envelope about picking things that are new, that are achievable, keep pushing those envelopes of what we, whether it is low-hanging fruit or it is something that is a long-term goal that needs to be constantly funded, say, for example, a nitro boiler or whatnot. So those are two recommendations I would love to see happen as we go forward. Now that we're in a getting closer to cruising altitude.
Noted. I love it. I love it.
I don't know,
Giselle.
Giselle.
No, I lowered the hand, but I did. My question could wait. It didn't have to do with the goals.
Okay. So,
Excuse me, Jay.
yep, jump in, please. Please jump in.
Well, actually, this is something I just thought of. The thing is that with this budget that we will be working on later on this year, the thing is we're going to have a not a unique situation, but something that doesn't happen often. The thing is about midway through this budget, the thing is there's going to be all new administrators in most agencies, because the thing is this is an election year for mayor. So the thing, the thing is this is an election year for mayor. So a lot of the agency heads that's there now won't be there this time next year. And so the thing is that's something that we we'll have to be ready for. We're dealing with new people.
Oh, I thought it was muted. I'm sorry. Noted. Thank you, John. I actually didn't even think of that. I feel like these people are gonna sit there forever, and the reality is like these people, they switch like sneakers. So, yeah, it's definitely something for us to try to be proactive in not only defining, like Rakeem stated, we're building the cogs for our board, but really trying to figure out those cogs that are outside of our board, right? Those liaisons for these other agencies that they get listed because they're an intergovernmental person. But as been stated by the staff and the leadership, that doesn't mean they have anything to do with the budget. So it's definitely something to, again, be ahead of, and aware, because we don't know what the new administration is going to enact and start changing and or consolidating or eliminating. So I never understood how, and even in business, the first place we look to do cuts is in accounting, right? We want to take the people that that articulate, translate, and express to us where the money and the numbers come from. So that's why it's been helpful in us having these conversations with our elected officials, right? Because three quasi accomplishments slash goals that I constantly record about, at least for over the last 4 years, would be education, constantly educating ourselves, educating the community, educating our constituents, engagement. It's everybody's echoed that. Civic engagement, community-based organization engagement, administrative agency engagement as dynamic as possible. Those of you who know me or who will get to know me, as you see, I'm an extrovert, so I tend to really be highly interested in reaching out to people I've never heard or met a day in my life and say, hey, how's it going? How can we work together to to properly address our community's concerns? And a lot of people, you'll be amazed. They want to do the work. I mean, it's a lot of the elected officials, and even in this is my personal opinion, have stepped out of their comfort zones to have this conversation more with the community and addressing, you know, uh, what we perceive as to be the issues of our district. And then the final piece has always been this SDN policy and procedure. And why, I say that because, like, again, I like that word framework. The framework has been built based off of our efforts and our actions. What I do find challenging that I see in other committees that have probably been around since the board's inception, right? Since the board was created or city council itself was created, is that they have that structure, they have that framework. The land use has the ULUP process, and license and permits has the SAPO process, and SDN has looked for that and has pulled from OMB, who's now transitioning to, I guess, collaborating with DCP. I'm still trying to understand that marriage, and how that's going to translate to our efforts, as well as even some legislation was brought up that I'm going to share with you guys, a part of announcements, but more of something for us to keep ahead of. It was shared with us yesterday at land use. Just something to look at and see what you think or interpret. Maybe a challenge for the board. And it's New York City. The New York City Council is coming up with this widespread legislation to develop what I interpret a quasi organization that will coordinate with all the administrative agencies, but as it relates to land use, for long-term planning. So I'm still early in my research of it, but I definitely would love those of you that like to read those 500-page bills to jump in with me. But I brought that up because, again, it's about process, right, for policy and procedure. And what I've learned is, in seeing that slideshow yesterday, I saw, the project planning process for SDN. I was like, SDN does this already. We do this already. We do a needs assessment. We then, start planning. And then after we plan, we execute, then we monitor and control, and then we close out. And then we begin the process again. So that's something that, I've been talking about it probably for some of you that has been here for 12 months or more. I've heard your ears ring out, but I would definitely love to put the pen to paper with some of you, and even offline from the regular meeting schedules, to figure out a better way to consolidate and administrate, to assist. Again, it's always to assist the staff, because like I said, you know, none of this is possible without the staff. And you know, I always applaud our ABM. She's a superstar. So those three goals are definitely major topics that I think encompass a lot of what we're talking about: education, engagement, SDN policy and procedure. And I was thinking of taking that, putting it on a spreadsheet, was something me and Carly were talking about earlier, where the office is already doing it through another process, and Carly might maybe want to speak a little bit to that, but something that was tangible for our committee, because I love, like, I don't know if you guys have been diving in the Google Drive, but the information that's there is outstanding. And I'm just trying to figure out a way to just start linking it, marry together. So I will open up the floor again.
Hi, Jason. I just want to jump in there. I am glad to hear that our goals are aligned. Of course, the education and engagement, my big thing is improving upon the process that we built last year and engaging more people, and also thinking about how to bring more feedback in and think of other mechanisms through which to do that. Like this time around, we had the survey, and of course I want to continue doing the survey, but what else can we possibly do that's not too demanding of our already limited resources? I also wanted to note that so you mentioned procedural. I personally have a goal for this committee as far as process goes. And I'm glad you mentioned how other committees have their own certain processes, like land use has, they have, not only do they participate actively in ULURP, but they also, when they bring developers in, they have this land use questionnaire that they require everyone to fill out. And we have the Public Safety and Transportation Committee with their street co-naming requests. And they have a specific codified process for that. And I would love to see our process, namely the engagement process, codified into this committee's, it's not bylaws isn't the right word because the committee doesn't have bylaws, but I would love to see the engagement process kind of formalized, so that beyond, you know, as time goes on, 10 years from now, or however many years from now, this engagement process is still a process happening with this committee in the future. So that's a goal I have. And of course, it's only possible if the committee is interested in that too, but just wanted to throw that in there. And then I wanted to also note, Jason, that I'm glad you mentioned the presentation we received at the Land Use, Landmarks and Planning Committee last night. I have it as an announcement on the last slide. I think that, so the name of it, it's like planning, it's at the end, it's at the last slide, but basically, so everything Jason said, yes, but also I want to note that this plan, although I believe that there is room for improvement in it, as there is in all plans, my favorite part of the plan is that it really places a heavier emphasis on the budget process. It sets out to create a better link between the budget, land use, and strategic planning procedures, whereas it hasn't done so, it hasn't in the past. Another thing I really like about this plan is that it kind of validates not only my feelings of frustration with the budget process, but everything that everybody has echoed here tonight. You know, I know Jennifer and Rakeem talked about being thrown into this process and you know, having to learn really quickly. I think everybody on this committee, including myself, I think everybody, all community boards citywide feel that way, because the budget process, there isn't really like a seamless link between what we put in our request and in our statement of district needs and actually like what is funded. And this plan sets out to do, like, to create that link. And the statement of district needs process is mentioned and heavily emphasized. And I think if this legislation were to pass, it would call for a more formalized engagement process in this budget process that we do. So that was really long-winded. I think maybe we could talk about the plan more at the end, or we can talk about it now. But yeah, those are my goals. And I know Andrew just joined. So Andrew, we were talking about our accomplishments, and now we're talking about our goals moving forward. And people mentioned their interest in seeing increased engagement, not only from the community, but also from administrative agencies, community-based organizations, even from committee members and committees themselves. I'm trying to, Jason also mentioned education, so civic education. I'm trying to think of what else we got here. But if you want to add anything to your own personal goals, feel free to jump in.
I definitely concur with engagement and wanting to broaden that out. I think the goals for this year, not that I have a specific way to go about it necessarily at the moment, but just trying to find ways we can be more proactive and aggressive given the true depth of financial crisis the city is going to be in, and so just trying to be more aggressive and more progressive with our prescriptions. That's generally speaking. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I have been taking notes, and anybody who has any further goals to add, feel free. But I do just want to flag for you that the reason why, I mean, it's always good to evaluate past, like, what we've accomplished and what we want to accomplish, but there's also a reason why we're doing that. If you've already had a committee meeting this month, you've probably heard it, but the staff is working to compile a report for the year for the community board. So for each committee, we want to have 3 accomplishments, 3 goals. You're not limited to having only 3 goals, but that is ultimately the goal. So I have been writing notes, and I will try to summarize it all for you and send it out to you.
And I promise we'll make sure it's about 2 pages worth on our meeting minutes, so you guys will get the credit. But yeah, I do want to echo the sentiments that were brought up by Andrew about drilling down that community-based organization engagement. And I really think that that's something that I challenge a lot of you this year, to really work with your chairs and start figuring out how to build bridges with our local nonprofits, our local for-profit organizations, administrative agencies. So then that way, that database that's being built at the back office that Carly will share with us soon enough, once it's ready and up and running, it'll have some meat on it, right? A number without a relationship, it tends to be a little bit more challenging. So us doing that engagement and building that bridge would definitely be assisting. I think there was something that was shared in conversations in the past about, just to give you an idea of what we're talking about, where, we were told that it's the community board's responsibility to find the organizations that are having challenges with funding and then connect them to the administrative agency to get funded. And, when I first heard that about, I think this was like 2 months ago, I was floored, because that's something that this committee has been talking about for years, about being the bridge to a lot of these local organizations that don't necessarily have the $1 million payroll to get the grants and the applications out to continue to provide the dire services that are needed within our district. And as brought up, COVID aside, just, not to undermine it, but we were already disenfranchised. So now it's just going to be magnified with this pandemic's recent challenges. So, I challenge all of you. I mean, we've done it very effectively at Youth and Education. I would tell anybody here, if you got some space, go join a youth. Our liaison on this committee is also liaison there. And just see how they operate with it. Because I've learned a lot in the years of how to take social emotional challenges, translate into a district need, and then itemize them in the budget and figure out how to provide that service. So I know I went a little, again, Jason's dynamic, because I don't tend to believe that anything's A to Z when it comes to talking about human beings. So, I asked us, let's be a little bit more flexible in figuring out more creative ways to build that engagement. Because I, for one, have been a leader of a nonprofit for 15 years, and I didn't know what the hell a community board was. And 15 years, that gives you some, and I'm very, very active in the community. So to give some of our constituents that, for lack of a better word, information and education, I would challenge us to continue to perform that practice. I see we got the council members team on. I saw the council member was coming on and then got cut off. Want to thank you. This actually adds, look, to our 2021 goals, right? We're talking about education, and our local officials are taking the time out of their day. We set this up in the last 72 hours, and I applaud the council member and his team for taking the time out to share with us, a little bit more of a heart-to-heart detailed conversation about the role of the community board's process with the budget and how we can assist our elected officials and how they could work with us. So, thank you to the team. I don't know if they're on yet, but I see them on the screen.
So Abby's on, she's a scheduler. I'm not sure. Okay, he's gonna be on in 5 minutes. I just want to note that he is on a limited time schedule. So when he does come on, we should let him speak and then we can go back to talking about.
I'm 100% with that.
Okay.
More than likely, we'll end the meeting after that.
Yeah.
Unless Andrew wants to give us his accomplishments. I was waiting for that.
In terms of accomplishments, I mean, I think being able to come together and even continue with this business and build upon the previous year through the pandemic, I think that was an accomplishment, not just the continuity, but building upon the previous year. And my goal going forward, hopefully again, is just that we can have more engagement and be a lot more progressive, dare I say radical, about our proposals and the way we approach budget, because we're being confronted with a pretty radical approach, which will be austerity headed our way. So that's where I'm at. But again, that we were able to build on last year through everything, I thought was a pretty big accomplishment.
Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate that. I know we all do. So I think that pretty much take care of that whole portion of the agenda, Carly.
Okay, great. Well, while we wait for the council member, I have not yet received the preliminary budget for fiscal year 2022, but I did want to share the flow chart that our committee has, Jason, that's kind of details the process and where we're at. Let me just find it. Give me a moment.
Just while she's doing that, just to jump in, another document that I recommend you all just take the time to read is the responses from last year. Carly shared that in for this month's budget. I'm sorry, when she sent out the agenda, and I would really, I ask you to do that because it will add light years to your learning process of how to respond and how to work with your chairs. The chairs all fluent in the process already to date, but it's that much more influential if we can get the liaisons practicing along with them. And as always, you guys know my number. The council members on, Carly, if we want to jump, I think we should jump to him. Thank you, Council Member Kalos, for joining us. We appreciate you and assisting us in our efforts with educating the district and as well as
Never,
ourselves
ever.
with this process.
I will never ever say no to Community Board 11, especially because I see my appointment, John Green, and I work for him. Are you waiting for me to start talking about something?
Yes, sir. We're turning it over to you. We know you got a short window, so again, we appreciate you taking out the time for us.
Council member, if you want me to kind of spearhead, oh, sorry.
So what's the specific thing? How can I help?
Yeah. So the committee generally is interested. So last month we had the Manhattan Borough President's Office here, as well as Councilmember Ayala here. And really the committee, we're discussing how the city process specifically, how it works, but beyond the community board's role in that, we want to hear more about how it's negotiated, not only at the city council, but how each council member negotiates their funds that they're allocated, like how that prioritization process goes for you.
Okay, give me 1 second. I'm gonna grab a glass of water. I'll be right back.
Okay.
He's like, I need a drink before I start that one.
Okay. Huh. How to negotiate the budget 101. When I was on Community Board 8, the least active committee on our community board was the Budget Committee. It was a standing committee. I actually got on the Budget Committee because it only met twice a year and it didn't do anything. And they just passed the same district needs statement every single year. And that was that. So first question, how often is this Budget Committee meeting?
Every month.
Amazing. So then the next question is, would you like to get, and this is a question that I it's hard for me. If you ask Wilfredo on my team, is Wilfredo here or we just have Abby? We just have Abby. Okay. If you ask Wilfredo, if he asks me to prioritize 3 things, he gets 10. If he asks me for 10, he gets 50. When he joined me, he had a full head of hair. So what I will say is, do you have an idea as a budget committee if you want to focus on 1 big thing, 3 big things, or like 10 things and being incredibly comprehensive?
Council member, if I may just jump in here, because I feel like I have an answer to that. So the way we have been formulating our budget request is through, so we have our members of this committee and they each are assigned to committees, and we have individual budget conversations at our committee meetings. And I think different committees tend to take different approaches. I know I sit as a staff liaison to the Youth and Education Committee, and they have in the past taken the position that they want to make a number of requests. Same with our Environment, Open Space and Parks Committee. But this year, their goal was to focus in on 1 to 3 to 5 requests. But when the finished product comes to this committee, what we have is then maybe a smaller number of priorities over 9 to 10 committees. So we wind up having a lot of priorities. And if I don't know if Jason wants to add to that, or if he feels that was an accurate representation of what happens with our budget requests.
I think that paints a good picture. And it paints a picture that is incredibly helpful and activist and much more comprehensive than I see it anywhere else. And I think could actually be a model for other boards. So the budget schedule is today the mayor gave the budget, the preliminary budget. So you're going to want to take a look at what the mayor has proposed and look and see what things got cut and what things didn't. And you're going to want to take the mayor's proposals and likely pass a resolution in response to the mayor's initial preliminary budget. In March, the city council has preliminary budget hearings. If you want to have an impact like a council member, you're going to want to get involved in those budget committee hearings in March. And most budget hearing committees in the preliminary budget allow you to testify at the end. And people may ignore you, they may not, but it's an opportunity to weigh in a way that no one else does. The budget ends up getting passed in May or June, and that's a time where you can pass resolutions and get involved in larger fights to get involved. If I recall, CB11 passed a resolution in support of defund NYPD. Is that correct?
We did.
I believe you are the only community board that did it. And I know that when I was attacked for voting as my community, as I was instructed by my community board, I was able to say this, I was able to hold up your resolution and say, well, this is what the community board representing East Harlem asked for. There were a number of people saying that this was, that the defund movement was not a movement coming out of the neighborhoods like East Harlem. So I think it was incredibly powerful and important and a good place to have a role. So let me show you some magic if you want it. Am I able to share the screen?
Yes, you should be able to now.
Amazing. Okay, is anyone familiar with the MMR? Okay, so this is the mayor's management report. And actually what we want is, I'm gonna go to nyc.gov/PMMR. Okay, I'm gonna stick with the MMR. So the MMR is a document that's going to come out. It comes out every single year. And there's a very long report. This is the very long report. It is 433 pages. And you can kind of skip most of it, because most of it is lots of like text that doesn't matter. So what is a top issue that you're facing at Board 11? Is it policing, homeless, health and hospitals?
Can we do trash? Can we do garbage?
Let's go to sanitation. So you can click on sanitation, and here's the sanitation MMR. And this one's only 6 pages. I can digest 6 pages. So streets rated clean, 96%. Do you believe that the city cleans 96%, that your streets are 96% clean? I've been to your meetings, no. So this stuff seems like it's not real measures. The number of violations issued for dirty sidewalks, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. For illegal postings, vacant lot cleaning requests. So you could work with your district manager and say, like, we've got a lot of vacant lots in the neighborhood. How many cleaning requests went in? How many got cleaned? According to this, there were more lots cleaned citywide than requests. Has anyone seen the vacant lots in the neighborhood get cleaned? So I'm recognizing that Giselle is nodding no. So this is some of the stuff that's being cleaned, and then it has curbside and recycling diversion, other pieces. So this is the pieces that are tracked publicly, and then it says it has other agency-wide numbers. And some of these numbers may not matter. And you may say these things shouldn't be things where we need to add different metrics. And then there's stuff about how much, and this is kind of a cheat sheet so you can see how much the agency has. So their budget, and this is in 000. So this is the budget in millions. So it looks like the sanitation budget in 2020 was $2 billion. The revenue from trash was 24 million. There were 7,775 uniformed people, 2,000, and we paid $150 million in overtime, and we spent $266 million on capital. And then they give a breakdown of how they spend things. And if I recall, there's actually a community board by community board sanitation breakdown. So this is the mayor's management report. It includes some interesting things in different issue areas. There's one that I spend a lot of time on because I've been focused a lot about homeless. And so we're trying to build more homeless shelters in my district. We're trying to open 80 beds 2 blocks from where I live. And so this one was interesting to me because it says this is the number of adult families in shelter per day. So it's 2,400. The number of families with children in shelters is 11,000. The number of single adults is 16,000. And so these are helpful numbers when I'm trying to quantify our homeless crisis. The number of incidents, there's a metric here that I like to pay attention to every year, which is average length of stay. So the average length of stay at the beginning of this administration was just under a year. Now it's up to 431. So I pay a lot of attention to this kind of stuff. So this is the mayor's management report. And this can help you get things as a community board. You can actually ask the agencies when this comes out to come talk to you about their mayor's management report. You could do your own little hearing on it and they will hate me for this. But like, this is what I do as a council member. We go over the PMMR, many people don't. They don't know how important this document is. No one pays attention to it. So you now know when, so now many of you now know more than most council members know. I challenge you to ask a council member if they've ever read the MMR. So that's one piece. The next piece I'd like to share with you is city council hearings. So you're going to go to, actually, I'll just show you how to get there easy. So you're going to go to council.nyc.gov. And you can click on budget. Each council member gets $5 million. And for capital, each council member gets roughly $500,000 plus or minus, sorry, $400,000 plus or minus a modifier for poverty in expense dollars. So you can actually look at where council members spend their expense. You can look at where they spend their capital funding. So you can search by district, you can search by sponsor, and you can get an idea of the types of capital projects that folks are doing. In my district, we're still going to be doing participatory budgeting. This district used to do it. I don't know if it's going to continue, but PB happens through capital. And so the expenses for programs like El Museo del Barrio, I fund the Three Kings Day event every year. I give them funding. There's after school programs. So funny enough, if you're in the budget section, it gets a little bit about the expense, but it really doesn't go too much into the budget process. So let's get you into the budget process. So you go to legislation and you click hearings, calendar, and video archive. And when you do that, it'll take you to a website called Legistar. When you go to Legistar, this shows you all the hearings we have coming up. And again, I'm sharing a little bit / a lot of secret sauce. So we didn't have preliminary budget hearings in 2020 because of the pandemic. So I'm going to take you to 2019. So do we still want to look at the sanitation budget, or what is the thing that we care most about? I'll default to sanitation for lack of hearing. So sanitation is run by my friend Antonio Reynoso. So here's the sanitation hearings. And so here's executive budget hearing on sanitation and waste management. And the executive budget hearing usually has less in it. But the preliminary budget hearing on sanitation and solid waste management has more. So I'm going to click on meeting details. And right here, there's a committee report. So let's open that committee report. Is this being shared on my screen? Can you see the committee report now?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a sheet for reading the budget. So the city council staff summarizes how we're spending money, what we're spending money on, the organics program. So when somebody calls me and says, Ben, the mayor got rid of organics collection, how much does it cost? This is where I go to find it, and it says the fiscal 2020 preliminary plan includes $9.64 million for overtime costs relating to organics. See collections cleaning on page 7. So I'll go down to page 7, but this spells out how much every single thing costs. The ban on single-use plastic bags, and it's going to cost us, we're saving $10 million. There's headcount pieces here. There's contracts. So this may be more than you asked for, but I'm telling you where all the bodies are buried. Civilian enforcement, street cleaning spending.
Can we do another one for fun?
Hold on, I'm just trying to see if I can get you something that's actually useful here. So here it says that the Manhattan 6 garage is going to be relocated. So there's information here about, I think, like putting it different places. So what you end up doing sometimes is like fuzzy math. So maybe you reach out to sanitation and you say, we need more people to clean the streets. And they say, oh, well, that we don't have the money. So then you would look at here and say, okay, they add an additional headcount of 64. That increased the budget by like X million dollars. And so here's where it starts to get cool. If you can put into your budget request, we are requesting $300,000 for 6 new headcount to clean our streets. Now you're talking about a real number and you're having a real conversation. Because when you say we need clean streets, that goes nowhere. When you say we want to see 6 headcount added for street cleaning, and we know it costs this much, and we're going to use fuzzy math of like $9.9 million divided by 64 comes out to this. And we believe that if we pay 6 people every day to wake up in the morning and walk around the neighborhood, this is going to solve it. Now you have something measurable. You have something measurable to come to me, Diana, the borough president, and say, this is what we want. We want 6 people to do this, and it's going to cost that much. This is like 40 pages long. There are 6 or 7 of you on the committee, but between the MMR and this, and you would use these documents from 2019, the last time we did preliminary hearings, it would do it. So Andrew, you wanted to do a different one for fun?
Yeah, because I just wanted to work through more so how some of those go, but
What's another one?
look through,
Libraries,
what was that suggestion?
public libraries.
Cool. Yeah.
Libraries is a quasi-governmental committee because the libraries are actually nonprofit organizations. They're not city organizations. So the committee report on libraries is going to be different. And by the way, Wilfredo, like if this is hard to replicate, Wilfredo can help you find things. He's going to love me for this. So this report is 22 pages. We did a lot on libraries this year. Here's a map of all the libraries if you wanted one. It actually looks better density than I thought in terms of it. So you've got 6-day-a-week libraries and 7-day-a-week libraries. One of your things might be we want 7-day-a-week libraries in East Harlem. Why are the 7-day libraries only in neighborhoods that are overwhelmingly Caucasian? Like, that's a valid question that this board could bring forward based on that map alone. I haven't done the rest of the research since then. Here's the finance plan, the spending, different programs we're doing, Culture Pass and library partnership, specific city council funding. So we have first readers, we have adult literacy, we have digital inclusion. So that's where you can go to me and Diana and be like, hey, it says that there's money for first readers. Why isn't this in the district? Let's get it done. There's the New York Public Library, how much they spend their money, and you can talk to librarians and be like, do we need more folks there? Here's the performance measures of like what the circulation looks like. You can skip the Brooklyn stuff because they don't matter. Queens matters less. I'm kidding. I kid. Capital plan. So this is the library's report, and this is where it really spells things out for you. So I'm going to stop the screen share. Give me 1 second. So those are just places where you can get information. Teach a person to fish. Sorry, give somebody to fish. That's one thing. Teach a person to fish. It's something else. So those two places can be incredibly helpful. If you go to the actual city budget, you can pull other things. It's where Wilfredo and I found like how much we were spending on the NYPD while we were pulling that apart. Do you guys want to see that too? Or are you drowning? That is an indication you want to see more. You guys are going to be really dangerous and other people are going to hate me a lot. And I love it. I'll take it. So if you type into Google NYC budget, it's going to take you to the city's, no, it won't. Okay. Office of Management and Budget. And now you're going to click on publications. Here's read the preliminary budget right here. So here's the budget. And you might click on summary. And this is what the mayor presented to the city today. So we need money, rich people got richer, blah, 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 blah. We're going to spend $200 million on the vaccine. We're going to do something called Help Students for $35 million. You could ask, what's that for? Who's that for? We can get you answers. I did a rally earlier this week on Wednesday to get a full restoration of SYEP. That's $132 million. We're still trying to pass universal SYEP. So you might want to do something on student summer youth employment and universal youth jobs. It's something I'm working on with Jamani Williams. Learning Bridges. I don't know if you're happy with your Learning Bridges sites, but that's how much is there. Get Food NYC. I don't know if you're happy with that. That's how much is there. Broadband to pay for Wi-Fi and shelters is they're going to spend $14 million. Some other things, they are saying that we need to save money. They're saying that we're going to cut back on funding for 800 schools for fair student funding. So you might want to look at your school budgets and whether or not they're getting cut. You have 3K in your part of my district. CB11 has 3K, CB8 doesn't, Central Harlem doesn't. So the mayor is delaying expansion of 3K so that Central Harlem won't have it. So I'm going to be fighting him on that pretty hard. He wants to do 12,000 headcount reduction, 1 billion in labor savings. So John, you're a city employee, if I recall, right? Or a retiree?
Former.
So they're going after our city employees, and then the mayor's afraid that the state will cut. So this is the summary. The big things of what the mayor's telling you about. This year's budget he's planning is a $92 billion budget. Last year's budget was $94 billion. He's planning $2 billion in cuts. I can think of a place he can find $1 billion. Please. So Nothing in here about changing policing in our city. There's stuff about capital budget. So this is the top line budget that you can look at. That's what the mayor wants to tell you about. Then there's all these other documents. You can free to go through them. It will not be a good use of your time. You want to look at the preliminary expense revenue contract. This is the one that's the scariest document you're going to see. This is the one like this is for this is what distinguishes the women and men from the boys and the girls. So this document gets incredibly useless incredibly quickly. Let me just scroll down. So you wanted to know about sanitation. Actually, we can do police because I spent a lot of time in police. So this is the format of it. It gets really intimidating, but like you just have to read through it. The budget is opaque on purpose because they don't want you to know what it's about. So they want to spend $325 million on school safety agents through the police, even though they said that they were going to take school safety agents out of the police budget. They want to spend $500 million on management at the NYPD. They want to spend $3.2 billion on operations. They want to spend $167 million on traffic, transit, housing police. Maybe you want housing police up, maybe you want it down. This is operations, school safety. OTPS means other than personnel service. So a traffic agent is a personal service. OTPS is the car. The little trike that they drive around in is OTPS. The piece of paper they write on to write you a ticket is OTPS. Anything that is not a person. Then you have the fire department budget and pieces like that. This is the one you probably care about. This one is Community Board Geographic Report for Expense Budget. So like, you guys are the only ones who know this now. I used to use this when I was on Community Board 8. All of you should run for city council now because you could like tear apart the budget. They would hate you. So sanitation. So let's look at, Manhattan 11, sanitation district, you are getting 4.9, I think this is in millions. And CB8 is getting 10.9. I don't know if that seems fair. Does that seem fair?
No.
I agree. So maybe your district is smaller than CB. I don't know, but like, it seems like certain districts in Manhattan get a lot more money than others. So this is 69 head count. This is for cleanings and collections. So you can do the math here of 69. So you can actually divide it and you can be like, actually, we need more. And it looks like they're increasing you by $25,000. That's nice, but they haven't changed your head count. So you can say we want more head count for sanitation. And then this just looks like a borough breakdown of pieces. So yeah, I kind of just landed butt forward in terms of like how much money you get for collection. So you can pull this document, it's on the OMB page. So that is like the last of like the documents you can go into to become really, really powerful. So yeah, I just threw a lot at you. Ask any questions.
I have a question. When you noted the discrepancies in the numbers for the, let's say, for example, the lots that you said were cleaned up versus the lots that we observed were cleaned up, why do you think those discrepancies of numbers happen?
I don't know. If I asked the sanitation department, they would say like, we cleaned up more than people reported because while we were there, we saw something else dirty. But since you now know that dirty lots is a thing that you can call into 311, if you're the sanitation person, that sanitation committee chair, then maybe what you want to do is get everyone together on a Sunday, canvass the neighborhood, put in the 301 complaints, get tracking numbers, see what happens. And between now and March, I am incredibly powerful. Because if you give me those tracking numbers and they don't get cleaned, even if they're outside of my district, or you can include the other council member, that's fine. And they don't get cleaned, I'm going to reach out to the sanitation commissioner, especially since Giselle, you're going to call me and say, Ben, I looked at the MMR. This is something they track and they are lying. And I will call the sanitation commissioner. If it was Garcia, it would be so much easier. But I would say, hey, listen, my community board is upset that you're not cleaning the lots. And if I show up in March and those lots aren't clean, that's going to be a trouble. And if you don't clean them after the hearing, like the hearing they're afraid of because reporters watch it. So they could get a bad press day just out of the hearing. Or if the hearing doesn't work, I'd be like, and you know what, I'm going to stand with Giselle in front of one of those dirty lots that you didn't clean, even though the mayor's management report said you did. So that is your power between now and March, and even in June, but mostly in March.
Thank you so much.
So,
Has his hand raised.
hey, Xavier,
Hey, how you doing?
I love your home. It is beautiful.
Well, I love staging things. There you go. The other room has a lot of kids' drawings. So
These drawings are for sale. They're $1 million a pop.
okay, good. We could raise some funds for the community. Thank you for the presentation, and I'm glad we can have this brain dump of information. It is having combed through it like you just did, but ad nauseum. It is drinking from a fire hose. It's interesting with the sanitation, just as an aside with that component, because the superintendents have actually cut the routes and the amount of trucks they allow on the routes. So I find that very interesting.
That's why the sanitation commissioner resigned. And yes, now you know what Wilfredo's job is like.
Yeah, no doubt. I think it's nice to see that 25,000, but I would speculate that's padding for OT.
Probably, yeah. I don't know.
But I think that's also helpful that we can start collating all the information. My question in this process is uniting our council members when it comes, because we have three, obviously, Diana having the lion's share, and then you and Perkins, and ways we can activate you in this negotiation process as we continue to do our job. So we're making sure we're hitting those primary points that are important for our community district. What would be the best way as we move down the timeline? Bit of a loaded question.
The politics in CB11 are different than the politics at 8 and 6. So in 6 and 8, I largely share that with Keith Powers, and like we just do things together. The predecessor was less collaborative, and she also, when I was a council member with her, had a bigger plate. I think that if the community board asks me to do something, I cannot say no. And if the community board asks the borough president to do something, Gail cannot say no. And if any other members are interested to lead, we will support them. And if it is not something that they're able to engage, then I'm more than happy to work with anyone, anytime, however I can. I think the big thing for me is my courtesy ends where a community doesn't get the resources it needs. So whatever you ask me for, I will push for. General things like sanitation things that affect my 8 blocks of CB11 are a lot easier for me than, say, if you said we want $10 million for the 107th Street Pier, where it is outside my district. And when Melissa was speaker and I wanted to fund the pier, and I negotiated that the mayor would fund it, and Melissa said no, I wasn't able to overrule her because it was her district.
Right. Okay, that is very helpful, and I think that's a recommended strategy. Thank you very much.
You got it. Thank you for the tough question.
Eh,
Uh,
you got
If
it.
I can put another piece out there, I tried to give you specifically things you can work from. What I see other groups doing, what I see other advocates doing, is finding something big that they care about. So with United Neighborhood Houses and the settlement houses, they said our #1 priority this year is summer youth employment program. So we did a rally, we got 70,000 seats because of what we did yesterday. Now I said to them, do you need the 5,000 seats that are left, or do you want something else? And I think they're about to pivot to summer camp. So when you say, hey, we want summer camp, we want every kid, we want every youth in East Harlem, in El Barrio, and CB11 to have summer camp this summer, and it's this many kids, 1,000 kids, because we spoke to Carter Burden and the other providers, that can be a fight we can wage. It has a name, it has a face, it is different than dirty lots. But it is something that is programmatic. We want $1 million for cure violence. Is something that is programmatic, it is measurable, it is something we can ask for. Capital improvements to schools, school seats can be something that's we can ask for. The way we got the $275 million for the Esplanade is because that was what I kept asking the mayor for every year. I can tell you that one thing is the money I secured for East Harlem, and I think it's $60 million, hasn't been spent. And I don't know why it hasn't been spent, because in my district, it got spent. So it may be worth the Parks Committee having a hearing with the Parks Department, or us having a joint meeting with the task force to just ask about, like, why did one part of the neighborhood, why did one part of the Esplanade below 96th Street get done while the part north of 96 didn't, even though they were funded at the same time. Everyone went on mute. I put people to sleep, or I blew them away with the fire hose.
No, thank you. That's those notes were very helpful. So Jason, are you there? Or there you
Yeah, thank you. Andrew.
Well, I just wanted to know, given the the initial information you have on the budget, what are kind of some of the deeper cuts that you're concerned about right now?
Good question. I'm just looking at the finance. Sure. The mayor, when I got elected, when I was a newlywed, and I fought for pre-K, and we didn't get a pre-K in my district until 2017, 2018. And I was fighting the mayor for 3K. He finally announced pre-K for all. He's not funding it, so it's not a CB11 problem. It's a rest of the city problem, a rest of Manhattan and the rest of New York City problem. But I'm pushing him for 3K. In the negotiation today, he said that if I could get $2.3 billion from Albany, he'd be open to funding 3K. In the 7 years that I've been a council member, my daughter went from being non-existent to 3 years old. So that is something I've been pushing for. I really think that I think summer camp is important. I think reallocating resources out of the police hasn't changed. I don't think that this budget is prioritizing racial or economic justice. So I think those are concerns for me, and I'm not seeing investments in our youth and jobs and seniors in this budget. And I think that is our way out of this pandemic.
Thank you.
Isabel.
What do you call it? I think the fair student funding should not be taken for granted, and I think you should be, I would reach out to the schools in the district to ask them. PS 198 is not technically in CB11, though it covers CB11. It will get a cut. I would be concerned about schools in your part of the city that are going to get cuts. You have several very high performing schools. You guys have Nest, right?
I'm sorry, Councilman, but I didn't understand the question. Carl, you want to answer that? Maybe that's for you, Fined.
It's okay. I think you have some very high performing schools in East Harlem, and the high performing schools are targeted for cuts. The low performing schools are being left uncut.
Well, we haven't asked about that yet, Ben.
Well, the beauty of this is you guys are hearing it here first. So thank you for that, council member, because I think that we should take a lot of this back to the committee and really start focusing on responses to administrative agencies and seeing how we could best assist you in your charge in advocating for the district. I've seen Isabel on the with her hand raised. Would you want to ask a question, Isabel, from the Borough President's office?
She wants the Boston
Yeah.
band.
Hi, Ben. Nice seeing you like every day this week at meetings. So I don't know if I'm asking as a private citizen who raised a 24-and-a-half-year-old son in East Harlem, and as a single mom, putting myself through school and going through all kinds of hardships, I always had to pay for extracurricular things that he wanted. And he always changed what he wanted like every 6 months. So now, 2 guitars hanging in a closet that I couldn't afford, but there they are. And I always worry about anything that has to do with cuts to youth, because I think my son was lucky that we had a community behind us. We had a network, and there were a couple of things that I learned early on about literacy, and I think that getting him interested in reading and stuff. And so it was kind of like I had a system, but I don't see a lot of people around us. I didn't see them having those tools, and we were lucky, right? And I always worry, and now like looking at the presentation you gave about the budget, and that was so educational for me. Thank you. And then looking, what got me a little set is looking at the numbers where you see a couple of districts have 4 million for, I think it was sanitation, right? And then I see your district 10 million, and it really made me
CB11 and
jealous.
CB8 are both my district.
Actually, sorry, I always think this is mine because I live here, but yeah, they're both yours. Oh my God, thank you for correcting. But okay, so and it makes me, because when you mentioned about I don't know, maybe it's Harlem, maybe CB11 has a smaller, right? It's smaller, and I feel like he's gonna make me do what I've been doing this pandemic. I've been measuring stuff for SLA because nobody's coming out to take measurements, and then I have to go do that. I've been putting a hard hat to go to construction sites to monitor all kinds of complaints, and I have pictures for both things to prove it. And so I'm thinking I'm gonna have to go measure out there, but I think with in all seriousness, how does something like that happen, that there's such a huge difference between 2 neighboring communities? And this is something that I kept saying in my prior job, where I was a community organizing for public health initiatives, and I met with so many people about, I was always picking people's brains, and I say, why do we have so much garbage in north of 96 all the way to Inwood? And then it's a different picture when you walk in the Upper East Side. I'm my niece says that the Upper East Side streets actually shine. So people say sometimes it's not that people throw the garbage on the floor so much. It is sometimes that our trash cans overflow and we don't have frequency of service. And constituents can do something about this. And it makes me angry to see that it is such a big difference between two neighboring communities, right? In funding. And it is not always about people not knowing where to put the trash. It's like I see a lot of overflowing. And with the pandemic, it's being even worse, right? And so how can we as constituents, and maybe I'm not talking in my capacity of borough president liaison here. I'm talking as a single mom in East Harlem paying like way too much rent. I get emotional, I'm sorry.
Isabel, I hear
What do
you
you
entirely.
think? What do you think we can do? Because I'm talking now as a constituent here.
Yeah, so let's just talk about the trash issue, because trash is parochial.
Sorry to
And
interrupt you. Also, not only the trash, but also the youth. I'm not dropping this. I could lose my job for this. I don't care. I have a 24-year-old. It
you're
costs me
not
a lot of
losing your
money to
job.
do the
Gail
right
loves
thing.
you.
But a lot of people, oh, Gail, get up. Oof, that woman birthed me and you. So we're siblings. So basically, Ben,
Yeah.
youth. I am not dropping that, even if that means I get fired. I almost got fired last summer for going to Crazy Mansion with a blowhorn and saying what I needed to say to the mayor. I got in trouble. Not a lot of trouble though. And I'm not willing to drop it because the disinvestment in the youth is going to keep us busy with that citizen app. Trust me.
Can I get a screen share quick?
Yeah, thank you.
No worries. So I would say that community boards and active residents like Isabel make council members better. I'm waiting for the screen share to come back to me, please, so I can share. I will answer the after school thing in a second. Okay, there we go. So Isabel, I have legislation introduction 1100 and 1113 to mandate universal after school. And I think we pegged it at, so there's already supposed to be universal after school for middle schools. And there's also supposed to be some others. So I think it's pegged that it would cost $180 million. So we've been negotiating that. So it's at benkalis.com, and if you search for universal after school, you'll be able to find the numbers. It's legislation we've been working on. I'll be honest, the advocates are more focused on, the priority is SVIEP, universal summer school, then universal after school. Just because of a lot of what we see each summer with rises in violence and just trying to keep kids out of trouble. So I'll close that, but I'm happy to work with you on the universal after school, since that is your knockdown drag out, and it's very possible Gail is a sponsor of that because she sponsors a lot of my legislation. In terms of like what's going on with the trash, you're right, the trash cans overfill. Anywhere in my district, there's a new green covered trash can. And so if you're at Lexington Houses in CB11, there's those green trash cans, and you can actually figure out if you're in my district or not based on whether or not you have those trash cans on the corner. You can work with the borough president or the local council member, and we get something called Cleanup NYC funding initiative. We get about $250,000, and you can either give it to ACE or another ACE, or we work with FedCap or Doe Fund, and they will pay for Justice Involved or formerly homeless men to sweep the streets. In my case, I spent my first 2 years buying trash cans. They cost $500 each from the city, and we bought like 400 to cover every corner in the district. So that cost us about 200,000, and we buy another 20 or 50 every year. And since then, it's reduced the amount of waste out there. I will tell you that the mayor blocked me, but and I don't know if I can get it done now, but I'd like to get it done perhaps one day in the future. I spoke to the Big Belly company that makes solar compactors, and they were willing to put in a solar compactor on every corner in Manhattan for free if we would let them put advertising on it. But ultimately, in my district, there's a guy named Andrew Fine who would take pictures of trash every day. And he came to my First Fridays, and I have open office hours, as most of you know. and you can always stop by. And he would bug me and be like, clean up the street, clean up the street, clean up the street. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to Catherine Garcia at the next sanitation preliminary budget hearing. And I said, Catherine Garcia, my trash cans are overflowing. This guy keeps sending me pictures of trash. Fix it. And she said, okay, I'll give you a second pickup every day. And we went from one pickup a day to 2 pickup a days, but it was because this person like bugged the hell out of me until I did my job. So I think you can have a real role in pushing elected officials to do their job. Also, this is going to be an individual choice for CB11. We've worked with the sanitation department in buildings to get buildings to clean up in front of them. So if a building's not taking care of it, in my district, we have a lot of doorman buildings. We have a lot of buildings that have supers. And if they're not cleaning up in front of there, we'll call the landlord and ask them to fix it. And in my district, my constituents are like, we want everyone to get fines. So we'll call sanitation and say, we want you to go to this street and issue fines to every landlord on the block until they clean up. That may not be the right attitude to have in this in CB11, but like we can work with you to have Department of Sanitation go issue fines, because if they know that they can issue fines on this block and the council member and the community board want it, like you can go to war with that landlord until they take care of their building, and you can do that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's the answer, and I guess it's just you need to have this. If this community board is looking at the budget, looking at the numbers, and paying attention to it, then we'll do it. I'll be honest. When I saw that Community Board 8 has $10 million and you have $4 million, I was kind of surprised. If I didn't show my surprise, I'm sorry, and but I definitely wouldn't stop talking about it until you guys acknowledge that it wasn't okay. So we should work together. I'm happy to work with your council, with the other council members to get that question. I'm happy to write a letter. CB11 can invite the sanitation commissioner to come answer that question. So I think it's just about if somebody is paying attention, if somebody has the resources to pay attention, that's just another piece of just like the socioeconomics and racial injustices that they run together. So listen, if you have wealth and you're not working 2 jobs, you might have more time to go through a budget document. But that being said, if you're willing to put in the extra mile, even though you're doing more with less, you can probably get more for your community sometimes. And honestly, the second you stop paying attention is the second they start cutting the money. Isabel, was that okay?
That is more than okay. And I'm thinking about something we used to do when I used to be a teacher, and it's peer reading, you know? So we're gonna, don't have time to go over this. Maybe we become friends with somebody who has time and can summarize this for us, but we need to start being smarter about budget stuff.
Well, one thing about CB11, this committee is definitely committed to ensuring that we're aware of what's going on with our district and the city's budget. So again, I want to thank you, council member, for sharing your time. Thank you, Isabel, and everybody for your questions and concerns. I do think that the conversation needs to continue, not necessarily for the rest of this evening, but more of the thought process of how we could collaborate and further work together to ensure that our needs are being met and are in sync with our membership. And I appreciate the, I speak for the whole body when I say that I appreciate you taking your time out and educating us. I mean, that MMR is something that I know I'll be studying for the next 72 hours. So that way we could be a lot more apprised for our responses.
Jason, thank you for having me, and not to overstay my welcome. I have my staff. I have Wilfredo. And Gail has Louisa and Isabel. And so we have staff who are paid to help on this stuff. At the city council, we have central staff who work for the speaker, who are analysts for these committees. So if you see things and you have questions, we can ask the analysts. There's Office of Management and Budget, there's Citizens Budget Commission. There's a lot of different folks. But basically, if you need resources, I have them, and Gail Brewer has them, and she has staff who can help you go through the budget. And if you see things that don't make sense, like the sanitation issue, like make sure Abby's going to take it back to Wilfredo. We're going to take it back to our sanitation committee staff and just ask the question, why is CB11 so much lower than CB8? And Isabel can bring it back to her budget people. And this is some of the real power of the community board and the budget. And it's just pick one or two things, have somebody on the community board authorized to speak and lead that fight, and just keep going till you win. Thank you very much. I'll see you tonight. See you. Sorry, I'll see you again soon. Thank you.
sir.
Thank you.
Okay, Carly, that takes care of our business for today. Does anybody else, you want to go through the announcements?
Sure. So yeah, full board is on Tuesday, January 26th. And then here's where I mentioned the planning together a new comprehensive planning framework for New York City. I really recommend, I'll send it to you all tomorrow. For those of you who haven't seen it or heard about it, I really recommend, I have to fully read it, but I recommend taking a look at it because the budget is a large component of this plan. So yeah, those are the announcements I have.
No, thank you. Maybe we can ask that young lady to come out and present to us as well, just so that way the board, we'll see. See how much engagement the committee shows into these comprehensive planning framework. I sent the link in the chat for those of you that want to get a little bit ahead on it. I also sent the link for the budget documents that was shown by the city council member. It'll definitely formally go out by the staff, but keep an eye out on it. He definitely was not lying with giving us some hit, line, and sink information on how to properly advocate for our community. So I challenge some of us to start looking at that as soon as possible so we can be a lot more proactive for the month of February, because I'll speak to the staff, but I think I have to, once we get this submitted to us formally, we know about it, but it hasn't been sent to us formally from the formal submission, then we get 30 days to respond. So I don't have any other announcements. So I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time and your efforts and energy.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good night,
Thank
everyone.
you, everyone. Have a great night.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carly. Thanks, everyone.